that says September 12th, 2017. And really, really cool topic that we are going to talk about tonight, and that is loving ourselves. And I actually we had quite a few people register, not as many people on, and I'm not overly surprised, only in the fact that this is a really difficult conversation for a lot of people to have. And we always talk about in our classes, right, the most important relationship that we work on is the relationship with ourselves. And I just realized I haven't started recording, so let me do that.
I had your back.
Did you start recording?
Yeah.
You did not.
I did.
Oh, it doesn't show it here.
It's not recording on your side. It's recording on my side.
Okay, so you got it?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Very cool. So, hey, there's Vicki. And for me, this is literally the most important conversation that we can ever have. And that is to really talk about what it means to love ourselves and why it is so important. And it's going to be a great conversation tonight. So thank you for being here. Looking forward to it. And because we have a fairly small group, it should be a really cool, interactive conversation about it. And of course, with all of our High 5 lives, there's no right or wrong. It's just our opinions and really just diving into the topic. Now, a couple of housekeeping issues. One is we promoted everybody that's on to a panelist, which means you have full control of everything that's going on. So if you start to push buttons, just know that you might push a button that you don't want to push, and that's okay, but we'll recover. Also, we have the chat, and I encourage everybody to chat tonight. We'll actually ask probably some questions that we'll have you put into the chat box. We'll do some polls, and all of the polls are anonymous. And I'm going to say that up front because some of the questions can be a little bit tough. And I'm just asking you to be 100% honest with yourself. That's where we get to do the work. And just know that nobody's going to know your particular answer as it relates to the polls. All right, so let's dive in and talk about this particular topic. And so I'm going to start tonight with a poll. And let me go ahead and bring it up. And here it is. You should see it for yourself. And I just want to know, what is your truth for yourself? Do you love yourself or do you not love yourself? And we'll give everybody a second to respond. And I know those of you that are on the phone, you won't have been able to respond, so just answer that for yourself. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and end the polling. And it looks like, according to what you guys picked, that the people on the call actually have done some work and say that they do love themselves. And I'm going to tell you, my truth is, I absolutely love myself, but I still have moments where, not always. And what I have uncovered for myself through this journey, and I'll share a little bit about my journey to get to the point where I could say that I love myself, is that even though the majority of the time that is my truth, there are still times I fall back into some old patterns and behaviors and I start to beat myself up. And it's a journey. It's not a destination. We don't just get there and say we love ourselves and then never have anything that we need to work on. So did I share those results? All right, we did. So just know that. All right, I have to do another poll. All right, so 2 questions on this one, and I believe you can see both questions, so answer them both. Whose opinion do you value most? And again, I'm just asking you to be honest with each other, with yourself. your opinions or others' opinions? Are you looking for that outside influence? And do you trust yourself? Yes, no, and sometimes. All right. Very cool. So let me end that and share the results. There we go. And so we're at about a 50-50 in terms of whose opinion do you value most, whether it was yours or somebody else's. And in terms of trusting yourself, we had one yes, and we had a whole bunch of sometimes. And that sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Hey, and Adri joined us. I see her back there. Hello. All right. So let's dive in, and we'll talk about why that's important here in a second. So the topic of our webinar tonight is, do you love you? And I'm going to go in, and we've got some new attendees, so I'm going to promote them all to panelists. I got some. So for those of you I'm promoting to panelists, welcome. And just know that if you have a webcam, we can see you. You can control whether you're on mute or not yourself. And we'll go from there. And oops, who's that?
Deborah.
Hey, Deborah. There you are. I can see you and I can hear you.
Can you see me? Because I can't see me, so.
Well, we can see you, and you're absolutely stunning as always, my friend.
Why, thank you. So are you.
Thank you. All right. Let me go. Hold on one more sec. All right. So, do you love you? That's our topic tonight. So, here's where we start this conversation, and I want to hear from you. And each of you has the opportunity. You can raise your hands. So you can tell us if you want to talk, or just unmute yourself and jump in and talk. We're a very casual bunch here. What does it even mean to love yourself? So who would like to answer that question? What does it mean to love yourself? And why is it important that we would even talk about this tonight?
I'll go.
Okay,
Awesome.
all right, I'll go first.
Thanks, Deborah.
I was going to say, I love myself because I feel like I can better give to others if I love myself first.
True. Hugely important. And have you always loved yourself, Deborah, or have you done some work on that?
No, I have not always, and High5 is amazing, and it really helped me to see that I can love myself, and it's okay to love myself.
Yeah. I wasn't looking for a plug, but thank you. We'll take it. We'll take it. Awesome. Thank you. All right, and I heard somebody else chime in. Who was that?
Yeah, Barb, that was me, Barb. Can
Hey,
you hear me now?
Jeff.
You know, I wish there was a third response because, you know, I'm not 100% there yet. I feel a lot better. I think I'm moving forward. But like you, I definitely have moments. And I was talking with Kevin. Kevin, when was that? 2 weeks ago or something like that? It was before you guys all went on your glory trip.
Yeah.
And we talked about the crab bucket effect. And I'm really having a hard time with that. That just, I not only does it happen, but I draw it and I let it happen and I fall into it. And it's just, I don't know. I'm not 100% there. I feel much better about myself than I have in years, but I've got some work to do. And that's so like I was saying, it'd have been nice if there was a almost there category to vote on, but I love myself more than I don't. I'll put it that way. How's that?
Beautiful. And you know, and that's the celebration, right, Jeff? It's just because you're moving in the right direction. And
hey, I high five myself all the time, and thank God I can do that.
Yeah. That's huge, 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 huge. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Love it. Love it. Who else wants to share?
I will.
All right, Will.
So it's an interesting one for me. Is I'm a firm believer in being kind to myself. However, there's also a moment where I turn into procrastination mode too. So there's a not holding myself accountable. But I do when I screw up, I don't think about it too long. I don't beat myself up about it as much as I maybe would have in the past.
So what's the benefit of that, Will?
Being able to get out of that moment faster and back into another moment where I just keep going.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Well, and we'll talk a little bit more later about being kind to yourself, but I love that. So thank you. All right. Who else will share? What does it mean to love yourself?
I'll go.
Hey, Leah.
Hi. Hi, everybody. So excited. I think based on what Jeff was saying, it can be a process of the ebb and flow of loving yourself, just because the more you learn, the more you know, and the more you know, the more you grow or don't grow based on those educational pieces. So I have times where I just loathe myself because I learned something new, and that's just, I think, a growth thing, and so I think it's an ebb and flow as you learn more about yourself and you learn more about your relationships with other people, what you can and cannot do so well. Just all those little bits. It's an ever growing sphere for me, at least.
Yeah, it really is a journey. Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Who else wants to share? And why is it so? And I'll add the question: why is it important to love ourselves? Why are we even talking about this tonight?
That's where it has to start. I mean, you got to start from within and work out from there.
Why, Jeff?
I don't know who it was that talked about it. About, you love yourself, you're much better to other people, and you're able to do so much more. You're in the right frame of mind. You're where you belong. Really, you're where we all ultimately belong when we feel that way. And it has to start with me, and it has to work its way out from there, because it's just, it's just the way it has to work.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right.
It's like a law of physics, right?
It's like a law. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's like
just like physics. It's one of those things. It's, for every action there's an opposite and equal reaction, that kind of a thing. So
yeah.
And what we say in the class is you can't give away something that you don't have. If I don't love myself, it's impossible for me to truly love other people, because I can't give love if I don't give it to myself. I can't give it to other people.
And you know what else? You love yourself. Your comfort zone is endless. That's one of the things I've noticed, is when I feel really, really good about where I am and where I'm going, all of a sudden, there's no limit to how I act or how I am with people, because I'm doing it from the right place. Do you understand what I mean?
Sure.
Right.
Totally.
I feel like if you love yourself, that others see that in you and they reciprocate in kind as well. If you're a happy person, or not even necessarily happy, but have love for yourself, that others will love you as well.
I mean, the universe conspires that way. So
Heck
choose
yeah.
you what you get.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. And I'll take it even one step. So beautiful conversation. So thank you guys. And I'm taking one step further. When you love yourself, you are demonstrating for others how you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
And what you will accept as it relates to how they can love you. But when we beat ourselves up, right? We're demonstrating for them that it's okay for them to do that to us as well. So just taking what you said, Deborah, just one step further, and I love that. Cool. Who else wants to?
I was going to say, and I see that I teach high school students, and right now we're just getting started, and it's challenging to teach them, and I think they see it in me, to love myself and to be positive about myself, and I'm trying to, shine that on them as well.
Yeah, and a lot of them haven't been exposed to that, so you're giving them a new opportunity. So how beautiful is that? Wow.
Yes, I'm blessed.
Yay, I love it.
Yay.
Love it, love it. Awesome. Any other thoughts about why it's important to love ourselves, or what does it mean to love yourself, or any
well, you know what else, where it helps is for those who don't get it, and those who you can't control how they feel about you, that's okay. I don't want to say that I don't care about it, but because I care about them, but I don't care how they feel about me. If they don't get it, that's on them, not on me.
And that's hugely important, Jeff, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But yeah, the only person we're responsible for is us. And that's a tough one, because a lot of us probably grew up, and I'll just speak for myself, to be a people pleaser. I wanted to make everybody else happy so they would love me and accept me. And you know what? That didn't always work so well for me, and left me frustrated and disappointed. So
yeah, and it was all the time, right? I mean, you were the one that always paid the price in that role, and it's so easy to look back and recognize that. And
but we didn't know. We didn't know.
Yeah, and it's a shame that we've been conditioned to
well, and I think that's just the perfect time. So we'll come back and talk to you guys some more. But I have another poll. So let's take the poll, and then I'm going to go into what Jeff was just talking about. But I love this question. So let me get the third poll up. There, you should all see it. So two questions. Are you your own best friend? And would you talk to your friends like you talk to yourself? This is where we get real about this stuff. Would you talk to your friends like you talk to yourself?
Again, I wish there was a third category in both of those responses.
I'm not playing nice at all tonight, am I, Jeff?
Barb, you're the nicest person in the world, and I love you for that.
I'm glad I got that on recording right there, Jeff. All right, so I'm going to end our polling. I'm going to share the results, and
I'll be editing the audio later. Don't worry. It'll sound like this. Kevin, you are the nicest person in the world.
Wait, I didn't say Kevin, so let me say Kevin for you.
Yeah, keep saying it a couple more times. Thank you.
Kevin. Oh, so much fun. I love my life. Are you your own BFF? And thank you for your honesty. 63% of you said no, you're not. Which just says we still got some room for improvement. We get to do some more work. And that's exciting, because that's where all the new possibilities show up. So that's really cool. And 88% of you, so I really want to get clear about this, 88% of you said no, you would not talk to your friends like you talk to yourself. And I just think that's so critical for us to recognize. So just like in our classes, this is about raising our level of consciousness, about the stories, the conversations we're having with ourselves, the stories that we're telling ourselves. Because the more we become aware of the conversation, of the stories, then we can do something about it. But we've got to become more aware. So I will tell you, there are a lot of people out there that don't love themselves because they don't even understand that that's something that they should do. because everything in their life has been about why they're not good enough. And so it takes a class or a webinar or a book or something that says, hey, you don't have to take this anymore. You are valuable. You make a difference. So it's okay to love yourself. And so let's talk about that tonight. So I want you to know, babies are born loving themselves. They know their self-worth. And if you've ever witnessed, right, a baby as they're starting to discover themselves, right, and they discover their toes, they think they've like won the lottery because they figured that out and they're so excited. We don't come into the world thinking that we're not good enough. We learn that stuff, and we learn it from people who mean well, but are saying things that are now creating challenges. So we get comments from people. Expectations are put on us to be a certain way, to be like somebody else, versus letting us be who we are. We get put into negative environments. We have negative attitudes from people around us. And all of that starts to chisel away, boom, 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 at our natural self-worth. And we're surrounded by it, right? Media, movies, all of that. That's saying, you know, magazines, right? That you should look a certain way, you should act a certain way, whatever all of that is. And we just keep hearing it, and we don't measure up. And that is not cool. So it's not about blaming somebody else for us getting that way. It's now recognizing that all of those factors have impacted us, and what are we going to do about it? So being able to build up our sense of self-worth is really important as we move forward. All right. So I wanted to share a quick little story. So this is me, and I think it's my screen is a little funny. The day I fell in love with me. And so this was a keynote that I did several years ago. And I mean, I've been working on this whole loving myself thing. And this day was one of the biggest days of my life in terms of really understanding what it meant to love myself. And I stood up on that stage and I delivered a keynote like no other. And probably my shining moment from that keynote is I made people laugh, because I had a story that said I'm not funny. And I made them laugh, and I had them in the palm of my hand, and I got off that stage and I was like, yes. And it wasn't about anybody else but me. And I knew in that moment that my message was solid and that I didn't need somebody else to be feeding me stuff. I could do it. And then, do you know what happened? Probably about 3 days later, it went away. And I share these quotes because of how big it impacted me. And if it's not your truth, that's great. But for so many, it is. And that is, I continued to compare myself to somebody else. And because I wasn't as polished as that person, or I didn't have as much knowledge as that person, I did not feel like I was worthy. I did not have the value in myself. And now I look back and I see how crazy that is. But at the moment, that was my truth, because I just thought that I didn't have it all together. But you know what? I was me, and I was working so hard to be like that person that I wasn't allowing myself to be me. And when I finally got out of that environment and I started allowing myself to be me, hell yeah, then this got to show up. And if it works, for you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. It works for me because I get to be true to myself. So my absolute favorite quote, and I've used it for years, is the one in the middle. A flower does not think of competing to the flower next to it. It just blooms. So I don't have to worry about what color that flower is or what kind of flower that is, whatever that is. It just blooms. And that's my only job, is to be the absolute best me that there is. And that's your only job, is to be the absolute best you that there is. Because if you were meant, I just want to make sure everybody hears this, if you were meant to be somebody else, guess what? You'd be that person. And so if you didn't come into the world as that person, then you weren't meant to be that person. You were meant to be you. And that's what the world needs and deserves. So let's talk about what this means and how we continue to love ourselves. And if you have comments through this, we can have discussion all through this. If you want to add something or share a story, please just jump in and let's talk. So in terms of how do we build our self-worth? How do we really take our loving ourselves to the next level? Because even those of us that say we love ourselves, there's more. There's a way to do that. So the first is to understand the power of your attitude towards yourself. So what do we mean by that? So you've probably heard people, right, belittle themselves and actually play themselves down and that they're not that important. And as long as you are doing that, it's kind of like what I was talking with Deborah a little bit ago, as long as you're doing that, you're allowing others to do that with you or to you as well. And so putting yourself down. Now, really important though that we talk, because whenever we get on the topic of loving ourselves, it always is like, okay, so what's the fine line between loving yourself and being egotistical or narcissistic? And that really goes with the second line here, learn to overcome a fear of self-love. Some of us are fearful of actually loving ourselves because we think that we're going to be misinterpreted or misunderstood. But loving yourself isn't about saying, oh, hey, I'm awesome, look at me, look at me. No, it's about treating yourself as your own best friend. It's about doing the things that are good for you and not putting yourself last on the list. People who have an over sense of ego, we'll just say it, I mean, they're looking to make themselves look better, right? So they're going to find things to say to you to make themselves look better. And that's just all coming from insecurity. That's not coming from a true sense of self-worth and self-love. And you know some of those people. So it's so about understanding that it's about just being your best friend. So one of the questions that we asked, so let's talk about this, was, do you trust yourself? And I don't remember the exact numbers, but there were some yeses and there were some nos. So let's talk about the role that trust plays in loving ourselves. So who would like to jump in and talk about what do you think the role of trust is as it relates to loving ourselves?
This is Vicki. I'll jump in on this one. I thought about it during the poll as far as I marked sometimes on the trust yourself. For me, through my journey, I would say when I started years back, I would have said then I had a strong self-confidence, and I thought being self-confident meant loving myself. But what I've come to understand and continue to work on is that self-confidence comes from trusting myself first and foremost, and the trust is built through that loving relationship I've built with myself to truly just show up as me, 100% authentic, knowing that when I do in that moment, that's true freedom.
Beautiful.
And that's so, I mean, on my computer, I have a statement of, I embody unwavering trust. And that first and foremost is to trust me. And I think that's for my own journey and my own healing. That's where it started. To love myself first, I had to build that trust relationship first and foremost with myself.
Awesome. Beautiful, Vicki. Thank you. So true. Anybody else want to add into that?
Yeah, I will, Barb. It's Chad. And it kind of comes with the slide that you had on comparison. So when you talked about that, it brought back a memory for me where I happened to be going through a training program, or a program to be a trainer for a certain leadership development company. And as part of that process, there were times where I struggled. And where I was doing that was usually comparing myself to other individuals and feeling that I didn't show up in the same way that they were, or I wasn't as good as they were, not counting the fact that they may or may not have had like 5 to 10 years experience on me doing the same stuff. But I'm just saying, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not showing up like that. So clearly I'm not worthy to do this. I'm not good enough. I can't do it. And instead of just trusting myself to have my own journey and just let it happen. And then just trusting myself that I got it. I got this. I got this stuff. I am worthy, and I will do it. And then even going a step further and then appreciating the strengths and the differences and the special things that I bring to the table, because it's going to be different. It doesn't need to look like how anybody else does it, and it not looking like that will bring special things to that process.
Yeah. And so I have no idea who you're talking about.
No.
But I'm going to ask a question, which is, and I asked you to be honest, so if I need to understand this, but was your not feeling worthy in those early moments, was that based on conversations that happened out loud or conversations that happened in your head?
Inside. Everything is inside. And so that was the other point, and you actually have it as your last bullet point here. Stop making your self-worth conditional on other people. You will never feel loved if you don't love yourself. It doesn't matter how many people come up to me and tell me that they love me. If I actually don't love myself, I will never feel loved. I can be surrounded by people who love me, tell me whatever. And it doesn't matter what they tell me. If I don't believe it, I'll never feel it. I'll never feel loved. I'll never feel self-confident. I'll never feel pretty or worthy or anything, any of that stuff. I can have every single person in the world tell me it. And unless I believe it for myself, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It won't matter. So it's not only stop making it contingent on other people, because it won't work. It just doesn't work. It's got to start all here first. So all those conversations, it was all inside. It always, and for me, my personal experience, generally speaking, it almost always is. It doesn't mean that there's not stuff that gets in the world, because that happens. I mean, it does.
Sure.
But then it's taking that, and instead of saying, okay, that person's in whatever space they're in, and that's not a comment that is worthy for me to hang on to. And instead, it's actually hanging on to that comment and then internalizing it and turning it into another story.
Yeah, so it's what we do with that comment, right? And how much weight we're giving that comment. And most of the time, when people are making comments that are derogatory, it's not even about the other person, right? It's about them. Again, it's an ego thing or an insecurity thing. They're wanting to make themselves look better, feel better. And thank you, Chad, for your story, because the point that I want us to realize, so again, it's about being conscious about it, is how much time and energy, and especially energy, are we wasting worrying about what somebody else thinks, feels, said, versus just, if somebody gives you their opinion about you, the answer is always thank you. And then if it benefits you, great. If it doesn't, let it go. But we spend so much time in that negative conversation, spiraling down, versus what could we be doing with that time and energy if we just stayed focused on what we want. And that goes with the next bullet, which is look inside. So Chad, you said it perfectly. None of it's happening outside. It's all about what's going on in here. And as long as I'm looking for an answer on the outside, I'm never going to find it. And so spending time having these conversations, every time I have a conversation like this, it helps me get more and more clear about the things that I'm doing to make sure that I am being the most loving person that I can to myself. So looking inside and saying, how am I treating myself? Am I my own best friend? Looking at the conversations that I'm having with myself. That's where the answers lie, not out what somebody else says. As Chad said, you can tell me I'm the most awesome person in the world. Whatever Jeff told me, that was really nice. I love that. But if I don't believe it, it's bullshit. It's only when I believe it that it's gonna matter. And that goes, stop making our self-worth conditional on other people. If we're waiting for them to tell us we're good, we may be waiting a long, long time. And that's not a good thing for us. So anybody have anything else around this stuff that they want to share?
My God, this is the story of life.
Yeah.
You mentioned stop worrying about everyone. Oh, I'd like to stop worrying about one or two. If I can just get that.
Well, yeah, and thank you, Jeff. And it's about who are we giving our power to, right? Recognizing who are we giving that power to. And bring it back. And what's interesting about this, I think it's on for a future slide, but since it's popping in my head, I'm going to say it right now. As you, and some of you have run into this as you've gone through some of this journey with us, is when you start to love yourself more and you take a stand for yourself and you actually start to trust yourself, it's going to freak some other people out. Because they're going to be wondering, well, why aren't you coming to me for all the answers? And who is this? And all of a sudden, right? So, but you got to stay strong in that because it's not about them. It's about you. And I think I've got some quotes, and I love these. So self-love, self-respect, self-worth. They all start with the word self for a reason, because it's only about us. And it's not your job to like me. It's my job. And we say in our classes, right, happiness is an inside job. So if I don't like me, I can't give that away. And I'm reflecting that back. So how do we get there? What are the things that we do? So I really want to talk about some of the behaviors and the things that we can practice to create even better Barbs and better Helens and better Chads and better Jeffs and all the folks on this call. So the number one, give yourself a pep talk, right? Look in the mirror and say, you matter. This is important. And then prove to yourself that you matter. So what do we mean by that? That means it's about accepting personal responsibility to truly take control of your life. And that's what's so critical is, what is that? Jeanette, I see you raised your hand. What you got for us, girl?
Well, I just wanted to share what I do. It's a mirror work. I think Louise Hayes, who just died, actually started it, and I do this every morning, that I look in the mirror in my own eyes. Like I have to look at myself. It doesn't work if I don't. And I say, I love you. I really love you. And then the third one is, Jeanette, I really love you. And there are some days that's hard. However, well, I should say it started hard. Now it's probably been, I don't know, 2 or 3 years that I don't find that hard anymore. I truly mean it when I say it. And I mean, you've probably known me. Well, you haven't known me the longest time, but it's made a difference in my life because go back 10, 12 years when I was 300 plus pounds because I didn't love anybody, much less myself. And I went through the motions, nothing was different. I went to the gym every day then too, but I don't know what, and maybe once I learned to love myself, it did make a difference. So,
It does. Oh yeah, thank you, and I love that, and I love mirror work, and I love Louise Hay, and she died 2 years to the day of Wayne Dyer.
I know, that was freaky.
Dr. Dyer.
That was
freaky.
It was a little freaky, but mirror work is so powerful, and it's making a entrance into some of our classes because it's so powerful, and we can do things like diet and exercise, and I'll just use that since Jeanette brought it up, or other things that we think are the right things to do for ourselves, but unless our mind and our body are working together. So if our mind is saying it's never going to work and it's just bullshit and we don't love you anyway, so don't even go there, it's not going to work. But once we start to work together, mind, body, soul, then we can start to actually to get some results. So beautiful. Thank you, Jeanette.
Well, here's the question. Here's a topic of the whole idea of the discipline involved of the commitment to be, and it always, at least to me, it always from the perspective. Like, I'm overweight, I got the weight, I got my knee, I got to do some exercise to fix that. And
Jeff, can you speak up just a little bit? Yeah, you're cutting in and out, but I think I'm getting the gist of yours, but keep going. Uh-oh.
I think you might be cutting.
Well, okay. I was talking about the discipline. Hello?
Oh, keep going.
Okay. Well, again, I was talking about the discipline associated with the physical aspects of exercise and things such as that, and how it always starts from, at least for me, that there's something physically that's bothering me. And in some ways, though, that can kind of grease the skid for getting you into the right frame of mind of, hey, I'm not just doing this because I want to look better. I'm doing this because I want to feel better. And I'm doing this because when I feel better, then that's kind of where that stuff starts to grow a little bit more. So maybe backwards way of looking at it, but I think it might be a little bit easier to cop out like that, and it helps you get into the right frame of mind. Am I off base when I say that, or?
No, you're absolutely right on base, because when we have a reason that's not external but internal to us. So if the reason that we're going to work out and do things is because I want to be more healthy, or I want to be here to watch my grandkids grow up, whatever that is, that internal why, that's going to be way more powerful than I want to look good so I can get somebody's attention. Because as soon as I get that person's attention, then guess what? I just start doing unhealthy things again. But if I come from a truly intrinsic internal place, then I'm gonna keep doing it. Is that what you meant, Jeff?
I think so. I mean, again, for me, it's starting with the physical fact that I'm a little older. I've let myself go, and that's not helping me feel better about myself. So it's just like extra work. So I've got to get the discipline in there, the more emotional end, or the real core meanings of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And you're right. How many times do you go on a diet, you lose weight, and then it just all evaporates because it was all shallow? So it's getting to that deeper motivation that, and that's in a lot of ways, I think that's like the golden chalice or the holy grail of this whole thing. So.
Yeah, exactly. What are you really committed to, and having a strong enough why to do that is so critical. So thank you for that. And I want to the next, and I need to make sure. Yeah, I need to keep moving. So the next thing is to stop blaming, and I want to just talk about this because most of us were raised to blame other people and other things for anything that went wrong in our life. It was a learned behavior and not accepting responsibility. But the freedom comes in accepting the responsibility to create exactly the life that I want, and for recognizing my value in the world. So I'm not blaming mom and dad anymore or any some negative work environment, whatever it is. This is all on me. I get to choose how I show up in the world, and valuing, the more that I value myself, the more important that it is. So super important as it relates to that. The next thing is practice resilience. And I love this word resilience. It's showing up a lot in a lot of the stuff that I read. And all that means is take it on. So rather, when things go wrong, rather than stuffing it in the corner and hoping it'll go away, take it on. Because the more that we take on the hard stuff, the easier it gets. So it's like, I don't know if y'all read my blog post that went out today. It's about practicing positive. If I practice positive on things like bad traffic, right, and not letting those things get to me, when something major happens in my life that's tough, I'm going to be resilient and be able to handle that, because I will have built the trust within myself and the habits within myself to be able to do that. Stop trying to please everyone all of the time. I know we've got people pleasers out there, and the more that you think you're going to please people, the more you're going to be disappointed, because the only person that can please that person is themselves. And it's a tough one, but it makes a big difference to say, you know what, the most important person for me to please today is me. Now that doesn't mean that we're not nice to others, right? So we definitely want, I mean, we're here to be in this together. We just don't do it at the expense of ourselves. And always looking for the opportunities. What are the opportunities? What are the lessons in this? And I love.
I'm sorry, Barb.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that, you know, don't always be nice to other people. If you're loving yourself, being nice to other people kind of takes care of itself, right?
Yes.
Isn't that?
Yeah, because if you're loving yourself, you're going to project that out onto everybody else. You're absolutely right, Jeff. Absolutely right. Cool. And then looking for the opportunities, looking for the lesson. So cool. We're just going to move on. So I get, as you guys know, I am a personal development junkie. I live for this stuff. I get lots of emails from different people every day, and I always find synchronicity interesting. So this afternoon, or this morning, I guess, when I was finalizing this presentation for tonight, I got an email from Danielle Laporte, who's somebody that I follow, and this was the body of her email, and I thought, interesting. So I'll read it for those of you that are on the phone. Here's a money-saving tip that also happens to be a radical countercultural act of defiance. Before you buy the promising under-eye concealer or the jeans that are just like the 3 other pairs of jeans you got because they were going to change your life by attracting the perfect life partner, or before you sign the car lease because you've been picturing that moment you drive up to your family reunion, and as the glint of the chrome catches your cousin's eye, they finally know that you've been way smarter than all of them all along. Before you pull out the credit card, take a full breath in and out and say to yourself, to you, I love you. And then see if you still have to have it. And I just thought, that is a practice that every last one of us should do. Why do we want that thing? What is the internal connection? And if there's no internal connection, it probably, and if there's an external connection that's not benefiting us, probably can save ourselves some money. So again, love when those things pop up in my life in real time. So the last stuff that I want to talk about, and again, jump in as you see fit, is truly seeing our worth. And this is everything that we do at High5, and Kevin, I know you will agree because we talk about it all of the time. It's about helping people see that they're worthy, what their true value is, and understanding value isn't in your job and it isn't in what you earn at all. So understanding what is valuable to you, what are your values, and what's important. How do you define success? So for me, success is being happy. It's being joyful. And the more time I spend in joy, that's what says, yes, I'm successful. So that's how I value it. I also, number 2, value your time. What are you giving your time to? So are you giving it to people who don't give any value back to you? Are you doing things to numb yourself? So spending a lot of time in front of the TV, and I'm not saying all TV is bad, but spending a lot of time and all your time in front of the TV, or escaping in books or video games or any of those things, alcohol, drugs, right? Any of those things that numb us, that's a sign that says something's not right, and it says I'm not loving myself. If I'm doing it to a place where I'm working to get rid of what's going on in the world. So I've got to figure out what's important to me and what are those things that I'm doing. So value your time. What are you spending time on? And that goes with the next one. So balance the time that you give to others versus time spent on yourself. I know so many people that give so much to other people, whether it be their family or their community, and they're always giving, giving, giving. And I have this conversation with them, and they were like, but Barb, it would be selfish for me to take care of myself. It would be selfish for me to spend time on myself. And what I get them to understand is if I don't take care of myself, then I'm not going to be around to help take care of others. I'm going to get sick. I'm not going to have anything to give. So it really is about the balance. For me to be able to take care of others, I've got to take care of this. I've got to take care of my health. If I think I'm going to be around to take care of and help my family, I've got to do those things for myself. So, and that says I am worthy. I am as worth the time, and I'm my best friend, other than taking care or spending all that time with somebody else. So I got a couple people that want to jump in. Kevin, I see your hand up.
It's actually not Kevin, it's Michelle.
I love it. What you got, Michelle?
Hi.
Hi.
So I love speaking to this point that you're, oh, do you want to see me?
Yes.
Hi. Just got back from cheer practice. Anyway, woo! So I find this topic particularly important in this specific area relative to taking care of yourself. It's something that we learn obviously in our training, but I've actually lived it. And I feel like sometimes when we tell people take care of yourself and it's selfish to not take care of yourself, that people just kind of hear the words and nobody really gets it. And so what I want to do is just tell a short story relative to that to kind of reinforce or reiterate this point. So a couple of years ago, actually, oh God, it's 3 years now. Wow. I was the CEO of a nonprofit association downtown. And I was working all the time. If I wasn't in the office, I was traveling, or I sometimes even took my computer to bed with me. Work, work, work. I had 3 kids I was taking care of. I had a long distance relationship I was maintaining. I had friends who were leaning on me, a mother who was leaning on me. I was taking care of everybody and everything else, right? Just had it all going on, taking care of everybody else, everything else. Then I ended up in the hospital with a life-threatening case of bacterial pneumonia. At that point in time, I was absolutely not taking care of anybody in my world, and it was because I hadn't taken care of me. And so, and you know, there's more to that. There's more to that, but I'll spare everybody all of it. But it's just me saying that it's not just words, it's legit. And I hear so many, especially as women, we feel like we have to take care of everything because now, you know, like we talk about in class, we're the CEOs of our households, but we're also the CEOs of our businesses. And we feel like we need to take care of everybody. We need to take care of our kids. We need to take care of our significant others. Some of us have aging parents. We need to take care of them. And it's really easy to push ourselves to the back of that, at the bottom of that list. And I'm here to tell you, you will pay that price. And there will come a time where you will not be able to take care of anybody. And you may not even be able to take care of yourself at that point in time.
Yeah. You know, and it's such a perfect example, Michelle. And I'm sad that you had to live it, but thank you for sharing it, for sure. So Jeanette, did you have something else you wanted to say?
No.
Okay,
Sorry.
your hand was still up. I just want to make sure.
I didn't. But I will say. Wait, I will since you opened it up. So I often have people say that to me, and I don't know many other people on the call, but I am single, no kids. Well, I have 2 cats that they actually do depend on me because I think if they could open up their own food, they'd eat a lot more. But anyway, they will frequently say to me that I am, what is the word? I can't even think about it because I only care, I worry about myself all the time. And they're like, well, I can't do that because I have kids or I have this or I have that. You don't understand. And I always tell them the airplane analogy. They don't even get that. I have to explain to people about the airplane with the oxygen mask. And I'm like, why do you think that is? Most people I run into have no clue. So I'm like, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And usually once I'm done with them, then they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much simple. So, I mean, to me, it's like, duh. But I've been called selfish multiple times and something else because, well, all you care about is yourself. But yeah, if I don't take care of me, no one else is gonna. So.
Yeah, and that the airplane, you're right. The airplane analogy is like the best way for them to get it. And it's actually selfish for us not to take care of ourselves because we may be long gone when somebody else really does need us. Cool, thank you. I know that my hour's up. I'm going to take a little bit more time and hear from you guys. If you need to jump off, I understand. But if you can spend just a few more minutes, we're almost done. I just want to make sure that we do our due diligence. So that the other 2 points on this slide are really quick. One is follow through. And all I mean by that is practice loving yourself. So Jeanette talked about the mirror work, giving yourself a pep talk. It's just being conscious and aware of the stories that you're telling yourself and saying, why would I give my power to anybody else? I have value. I have worth. I am the one that's in control of my life. And the more that I control it, the more that I can create. And one of the biggest acts, and I think, Jeff, you might have even said this early on, one of the biggest acts of love is then loving ourselves so much that we have all of this to give away, right? So that for me is what, the more that I love myself, the more that I can give away to others and at least make them aware of and give them the possibility of loving themselves. And something we talk about a lot in our classes is living in the present moment. So if I am worried about what somebody else is going to think, right, I'm not being present. If I'm worried about what somebody said in the past, I'm not being present. And I get that. We spend so much time in our head, but we're missing all of our power. Our power is in the present moment. So I know some of those stories, right? So my and a lot of you have heard my story about my kindergarten teacher who gave me the sad face on my paper, and it messed me up for a long time because I thought I had to be perfect. You know what? It's not her fault anymore. I'm an adult. I don't need to live in the past. I don't need to worry about that. I know that that's not my truth anymore. So it's now about us stopping holding on to old stories and old shit that wears us down, and we can do something different with it. So Will, I see you raised your hand.
It's something connected for me back to, and I don't remember if this was a Facebook video that went around and or if I found this on Reddit at some point in time, but what we were talking about reminded me of a video where they had an interviewer and they had a series of adults come through and ask them what the one thing was that they wanted to change about themselves. And everybody had something, right? You know, my nose, something. And then they brought in a bunch of little kids and asked them what they wanted to change about themselves. Little kids either didn't have an answer or they wanted to add on like a rhinoceros horn. Like the inspiring thing to me is that this is all learned behavior in terms of some of the self-loathing.
Totally. Oh, I love that story. That's awesome. Thank you for adding that. And it's true. Again, we weren't born with this. We learned it, and we can unlearn it. And it just takes practice and time to do that. So it's about seeing our worth. So real quick, I want to hear from you guys. What are some ways that you can love yourself? What are some of the behaviors that you can take to say to yourself that you matter?
We have one over here, Adri.
So we were talking about time, and I recently saw this video, and they asked to write down everything that you want to do someday, like learn how to play the guitar or anything like that, or travel. And then on the other side, write down everything that you did today, such as commuting, playing on the phone for a few hours, and everything. And then to invert that to making today, you know, playing the guitar or traveling or doing some sort of trip. So for me, like, what helps me with my self-worth is to do those things, like my someday list. And, you know, it makes me feel more happy, and yeah, I'm pursuing those goals. So
yeah, don't put it off.
Yeah.
Nice. A perfect example of living in the present. Because, you know, the bottom line is you may not have tomorrow.
It's true. Yeah.
So very cool. Thank you, Adri. I love it. Yay. Who else?
Take yourself out on a date night. Do it for yourself. Just be with yourself.
Yep. I buy myself flowers all the time. Good. All right. Who else? What are some other behaviors?
I'll jump in because it kind of ties back to my original one. It's actually committing to doing the things that I said I would do and the things that I said were important to me, because if I let it slide, I'm way too kind to myself like I have a tendency to be. I just don't get stuff done. I do play the video games and just ignore things, and then I end up going, oh man, you know, in that negative space. Like I'm working on this podcast that I was putting together, and I've been slowly but surely collecting things, but if we're being honest, I could go a lot faster, and I'm committed to certain things, and I say it, and then I let myself off the hook, and then I never follow through, and that's me when I'm not loving myself. Whereas the me who loves myself trusts myself to take the hard steps and get these things done, and then I feel a lot better when I do.
Yeah, great awareness, Will, and thank you. And I know others will feel that same thing, so I love it. Who else? What are some things that you either do to love yourself or things you can do to love yourself?
Me, pick me.
Evelyn!
Hi! He's had a couple, but he doesn't want to speak up. Yeah.
Keith, come on.
I would be nice to yourself. Take yourself on a trip.
Take yourself
on a trip.
On a trip.
Yeah.
Like to Peru, to hike the Inca Trail.
On the beach. Take yourself to the lake, whatever it may be that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Any type of activity.
Love that. Yes.
Yeah, and with that, it's like movement, right? So for me, the things I love to do, which is, going to the gym or working out, not necessarily going to the gym, but that's what I did today. And it just connected me back to our grueling trip on the Inca Trail. But what am I going to do to keep that going? Because it really felt good after that. Maybe time to meditate, time to read your favorite book, or something that you really love to do, and give yourself that gift, even if it's an hour of the day, right? So that's what I was thinking. I love the movement part and treating yourself that way as well.
Yeah, I was happy to get back to the gym this morning as well. And one of the things I do for myself most days is I go spend a little bit of time at the ocean, because that's my space to think and meditate and do that stuff. So love it.
So mine, Barb, is similar to that. It's a smaller version of the ocean. It's the bathtub. Don't have a lot of ocean here in Chicago, but I'll take 45 minutes to an hour and just sit in the tub and use that time to meditate and read a little bit, and it calms me. And so whereas for Evelyn it's the movement, for me it's the lack of movement. But that water, there's something soothing about water, right? Yeah. And just taking that time to just relax and steam a little bit. But that's definitely self-love behavior for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that we went both the things that we can do for ourselves like that, and also the things that we can do to push ourselves, like Will said. So there are lots of different ways, truly being committed and holding ourselves accountable to the things we said we would do. So love, love, love. All right, so I'm going to finish up because I know I'm 10 minutes over, but I love this conversation. So a couple of just quick things, very important for me to make sure that you guys all know. We've got our new advanced level class, our High5 Leader Evolve class. First class is September 30th, October 1st. Just a couple of seats left, and I am telling you, that class keeps coming together more and more. As I keep working on myself, the class keeps changing, and it's going to be badass. That's all I can tell you. I am super, super excited about it. If you're ready to do some next level work, and you're not already enrolled in this class, let's talk, and let's just see if it's a good fit for you. And I will certainly let you know whether I think it is or not, based on where you're at and what you've got going on in your life. Then we got our High5 Leader Intensive. So we've got a class in October, and this is our wake up experience. Most of you have had an experience, either 3 or 4 day experience. What I'm gonna offer is, if you have people in your life right now through, I don't remember the date, somebody else probably does, but we've raised the price on this class, and we're offering the old price through, I think, the end of October, and even a little present for you. But the bottom line is, if you know somebody that would benefit, what we are now offering them is a free 30-minute coaching call. And probably it might even be longer than that. We just really want to have a conversation with these folks and see if we can help them. If we can, then we'll tell them about the 3-day program. If we can't, we'll tell them that too. We know that our training isn't for everybody. It is a tough class. You all know that. And so this is just an opportunity to say, hey, is it a good fit or not? So you know the benefits you got, and this is just whether we can help them. And our next High5 Live, which is down at the bottom, so these are just the dates of our classes, is going to be October 10th. We're going to make sure that you get a copy of the recording of this one in case you want to go back and listen to it for any reason, or share it with anybody. You're welcome to do that. But it'll also have a link so that you can register for the next High5 Live, which is about the fact that practice doesn't make perfect. Practice actually makes permanent, which means what we need to do is we need to practice positive. And so we'll be talking about that on our next High5 Live October the 10th. So that is what I've got. And of course, we end with some Choose Joy, because joy is always available to us. It is a choice. And the more that we love ourselves, and I will just talk from experience, the more that I love myself, the easier it is for me to choose joy. And I choose it a lot. And even when I get overwhelmed and I start to feel like, oh, I got a lot of stuff going on, boom, I relax and I go back into what's best for Barb. And what I find is when I go to what's best for Barb, it's what's best for High5 and everybody else in my world as well. So any final comments from anybody about tonight? I would love to hear from you.
Another great call, Barb. Awesome topic and some great insight from everybody. Thank you, everybody, for sharing.
Wow, thank you.
Stay tuned to your Facebook and emails from High5. Some big news coming here in the near future. Some exciting stuff happening, and excited to share it with you guys. So
yes.
Good stuff, BMO. Thank you.
Teaser, you are a teaser over there. I love it. Yeah, thank you, and I too thank you guys for participating tonight. Such great conversation. I love it. Anybody else?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Well, go enjoy the rest of your evening and love yourself. And if you need any help, call me. Call Kevin. Call any of us, and we got your back. So love you. Choose joy, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.
Thanks, Barb.
Bye.
Thanks, Christine.
Yeah, bye.